We continue now at the top of Daf Chavavam and Beis Meseches Megillah. This is Megillah Daf 26b. On the previous Amud, the Gemara said that if the Shiva Tuvei Ha'ir, if the 7 representatives of the city, in front of the whole city, they sell the shul, so then the shul will not retain its kedusha, and then the money, let's say, from the sale will not have that kedusha. There'll be no restrictions on that because it was sold again on that condition by these Shiva Tuvei Ha'ir. And that's what the Gemara says over here. If it's sold by the Shiva Tuvei Ha'ir, you can even use the money Lemishta Be'Shichra to drink beer. As Rashi over here says, "Lemishta be'shichra liknos bedamim v'laso shecher lishtos." You can use the money in order to make beer, in order to drink the beer. You can use it for any purpose essentially. And the Gemara says, "Shaper dami." That would be fine. Ravina havale ahu tila devei knishta. Now Ravina, he had a certain area. It was like a mound of dirt from a Beis HaKnesses. It was a destroyed shul. Rashi over here says, "Tila called bayis harus kari tail." Anytime you have a house that's destroyed, that's called a tail, a mound. Kimova hoisa tail olam. That's a pasuk. V'haisa tel olam means the same basic idea. So he had a tila debei kanishta. He had he owned an area that was a destroyed shul. Also lekami de Ravashi. So he came in front of Ravashi. Amarle said to him, "Mahu lemizram. What's the halacha? Am I allowed to plant over here? Can I use it for other purposes?" Amarle said to him, "Zil zavne mishiva tuvei ha'ir b'mayim anshe ha'ir v'zara." Go ahead and purchase the area, this plot of land from the 7 tuvei ha'ir, in front of everyone from the city, and then you could plant it. You could do whatever you want. The same basic idea, like we said before. If you do it through the Shiva Tuvei Ha'ir, then it can lose that kedusha. Rami Barabba have a kaboni be kanishta. So Rami Barabba, he was building a Beis HaKnesses. Have ahi kanishta atika have boy lemistre ulasuye livne yukshuri minei vayuli lahasam. And so there was an older Beis HaKnesses in the area, and he wanted to destroy that one, and he wanted to bring the bricks and the beams from that one and use it over there. Use it to build a new Beis HaKnesses. So that's what Rami Barabba wanted to do. In order to build a Beis HaKnesses, he wanted to use the materials from an old one to build a new one. So Yosef Vikami Boile, so he was sitting and he asked the following question. Hadr Rav Chisda, that which Rav Chisda said, the Amar Rav Chisda, because Rav Chisda said, Lo listor be'knishta, a person shouldn't destroy one Beis HaKnesses, adabani be'knishta achrisi, until he first builds the new Beis HaKnesses. We're afraid over there that if you're gonna destroy the first Beis HaKnesses, maybe you won't end up building the second one. So he said, Hasam mishum pshiyusa. Over there, the reason is because of pshiyah. As Rashi over here says, mishum pshiyusa, because of negligence. Shemi yivshav yisiyayish v'lo yivnacher. We're afraid if you destroy the first Beis HaKnesses before you build the second one, maybe you'll give up and you won't ever build the second one. Now you'll have no Beis HaKnesses. So that's the reasoning behind what Rav Chisda said. So therefore, he asked the following question. Rami Barabba asked, Ki agavna mai. In this situation, what's the halacha? Because Rashi says, Ki agavna mai shein stiraso alivinyono shel zeh. Here we're tearing one shul down, but we want to use the materials for the second shul. So maybe it would be different. Maybe there's no problem to tear it down first, and then afterwards you'll use the materials and build the second Beis HaKnesses. So that was the question. So Asal Kami de Rav Papa. So he came in front of Rav Papa. He said it's forbidden. You're not allowed to tear down the shul without having a replacement shul already up. You can't tear it down even if you wanted to use the materials. Lakami de Ravuna. He came in front of Ravuna. And he also said that it's prohibited. It's going to be a problem. And the Gemara continues. Amar Rava says, Hai Bei Kanishta, when it comes to a Beis HaKnesses, Chilufa Uzavuna Shari. If you're going to exchange it for another building, or let's say you're going to sell it for money, so then it's permitted. The idea over here is that the Kedusha is going to go from the Beis HaKnesses to the money or to what you exchanged it for, and now you can use that Beis HaKnesses for other purposes. However, Oguro Mashkona, but if you're going to rent it out or mortgage it out, so also then that's going to be a problem, because in such a situation, it's still going to retain its Kedusha as a Beis HaKnesses, and now you're going to rent it out for another purpose. That's going to be problematic. My time, what's the reason? Bikdusha Sakoy, again, when you're renting it or mortgaging it out, so then it keeps its Kedusha, and it's a problem. And the Gemara continues, Livni Nami, the same is true when it comes to the bricks. Chilufinu uzvuninhu. Let's say you're exchanging them or you're selling them again, you're exchanging them for something else, you're selling them for money, so then Shari, it's permitted, the bricks can be used for other purposes. We can say that the Kedusha transfers to the money. But Ozofinu Aser, but if you're going to, again, rent it out, it's going to be a problem. It's going to retain its Kedusha, you can't use it for other purposes. But the Gemara qualifies, Hani Mili Be'atikta. That's only true when you have old bricks. In other words, you have bricks that were already part of a shul. The shul was destroyed, so now the bricks have that Kedusha. They were actually part of a shul. Avo Becharata, but let's say they're new bricks. They've never been part of a shul, but they were designated for a shul. Less lunba. That's nothing. Just the fact that you designated the bricks to be built into a shul, that doesn't make a difference. And even according to the one who says that normally designation is worth something, it's substantial, it can give something Kedusha. Hani Mili, that's only true Kagon Ha'oreg Beged L'Meis. That would be true, let's say a person weaves a beged that he says is going to be used for a mace. Hasn't yet been used for the mace, but he wove it for that purpose. That designation would be worth something. But over here, when you're just talking about bricks that are lying on the ground, Kitavei Larg Dami, it's like you have some spun wool that you're waiting to weave it together. You haven't even woven it. That kind of designation, V'leka L'man Damar. Nobody says that designation is worth anything. Rashi over here explains, Chilufe Uzvune, again, if you exchange it or sell it, Chala Kedusha Al Achilaf, then the Kedusha goes on what you exchange it for. Or Al Adamar, on the money. V'hu Yotzim in HaKedusha L'shtamish Bo. Rashi says, then the Kedusha would leave, you can now use it. Livni Levenim Shel Beis HaKnesses, again, the bricks of a Beis HaKnesses. Ba'atike Shenivnu Kvar B'kosel Beis HaKnesses Shenafal, talking about old bricks, they were already part of a Beis HaKnesses that fell down. Aval B'charata Shenasa L'Shem Beis HaKnesses Less Lanba. If you have new bricks that are just designated for a Beis HaKnesses, that's nothing. Even according to the one who says in Meseches Sanhedrin, let's say you weave a beged for a dead body, that's considered aser just by the designation, but because the general rule is tachriche hames are aser bahana, you can't get benefit from them. The Gamrin and Shamsham Megillah Rufa can Mefarish Hasim, it's learned out from Megillah Rufa. Hani mili boreg beged lames, that's only true if you weave it for the mace. Sheino chaser el arigo, all you needed to do was weave it. Once you weave it, it's ready to go on the mace. In other words, you wove it for the mace, it's ready to go, you didn't put it on the mace yet. That's designation, that's substantial. But if you just have a bunch of bricks, you haven't even put them together as a wall, you've done nothing with them. If you just have a bunch of bricks sitting there waiting for a shul, that's the same thing as if you had spun thread that's waiting to be woven together. Nobody would say in that case that if I just designate that thread, or if I just designate these bricks for Beis HaKnesses, that's worth anything. That's not going to create any Kedusha. And the Gemara continues, Matana, what if you had a situation of a gift? As Rashi over here says, Matana nasnu b'nei Oyer Beis HaKnesses l'tashmishei chol. What if the people of a city would give away a shul to be used for other purposes? What would happen in that situation? There's no real exchange going on over here, but on the other end, it is a little bit similar to a sale. It's being totally given away. So pligi bar Ravacha v'Ravina. So for that, there's a machlokas Ravacha and Ravina. Chad osar v'chad shari. One of them says it's prohibited, it's a problem. The other one says it's permitted. Manda also, the one who says it's prohibited, b'hai tifka kedushasa. You're not even able to transfer the kedusha onto anything else. So what's going on over here? Of course, it's still a problem. Umanda shari, but the one who says it's permitted, ilav dahavale hanoa minei. Whoever you're giving it to, whoever you're giving this matana to, there must have been some benefit from him. You must be giving in exchange for something. If not for that benefit, lo hava yoivle, you wouldn't have given it to him. So hadar havale matana kisvina. So it turns out that even a matana is really like a sale. In other words, when you sell something, you're selling it in order to get money. When you're giving a gift to somebody, so if you're giving this shul away as a gift, that person who you're giving it to must have given something in exchange. There must have actually been an exchange of some kind, and therefore the matana has the same status as a sale. The Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught, Tashmishay mitzvah, things that are used for a mitzvah, nizrakin, they can be thrown out. Tashmishay kedusha, but things that are used for kedusha purposes, nignazin, they have to be buried respectfully, they have to be put into geniza. The following are considered tashmishay mitzvah: sukkah, lulav, shofar, tzitzis. Sukkah, lulav, shofar, and tzitzis, all used for mitzvah. Again, they can be thrown out. The following things are used for kedusha purposes: the luskame svarim. Let's say you have cases where you keep svarim, or tefillin and mezuzahs. Let's say you have tefillin and mezuzahs. V'tikshel sefer Torah, v'nar tikshel tefillin. You have a container for sefer Torah, a container for tefillin, or tzuasein, and for the straps. All of those things are used for kedusha purposes, and again, they have to be put to geniza. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rava says, Mereish hava amin, originally I thought, Hai korsaya tashmish de tashmishu. I thought that korsaya is considered a tashmish of a tashmish. Rashi over here says, korsaya is bima shaletz. It's like the wooden bima that we use, we put the sefer Torah on. So he thought it was tashmish to tashmish, meaning, shapores mapa olav, what they would have is this bima of wood, and they would put a cloth on top of it, and the Sefer Torah would go on that. So in other words, the bima was serving the mappa, and the mappa was serving the Sefer Torah. So therefore, the bima, he thought it's just a tashmish to tashmish. It's not considered tashmish kedusha. It doesn't have that level of holiness. So therefore, he thought v'shari. Therefore, he thought it's permitted. You could throw it out. You could do whatever. But kaven the chazina the most ve'olah Sefer Torah. But then I saw that sometimes they would put the Sefer Torah directly on the bima. So amina tashmish kedusha u'v'aser. So I said it's a tashmish kedusha, and it's considered aser. And the Gemara continues, V'yom Rav, and Rav says, Meireish Havamin, originally I thought, Hai Parisa Tashmish to Tashmishu. This Parisa is considered a Tashmish to Tashmish. Rashi over here says, Parisa, Yuriya Shaparsin, Sevivo Sa'ar Mibifnim. It was like a curtain that they spread around the Aron. So that also was Tashmish to Tashmishu, meaning Tashmish Shel Aron. That was the Aron was serving the Sefer Torah, and the curtain around the Aron was serving the Aron. So again, the same idea. I thought it was a Tashmish to Tashmish, and it would be mutter. But then I saw that sometimes they would fold it over under the Sefer Torah. They would put the Sefer Torah upon it. So Amina Tashmish Kedushu. So then I said, no, it's used directly for Kedusha, V'Yasser, and it's going to be Yasser. And the Gemara continues, V'Yamar Rava, and Rava says, Hai Tevosa di Irfut. Let's say you have an Aron, and the Aron is falling apart. So Me'av the Teva Zutrasi Shari. If you want to turn it into a smaller Aron, that would be permitted. You're turning it into the same Kedusha. As Rashi over here says, the Irfat Aron Sheniskalkil V'Nifar Mechiburo. Again, it's falling apart, this Aron. So Tevusa Zutrasi, make a smaller one. Lasos Teva Ketana Min Agadola Rishona. Make a smaller one. That's going to be fine. No problem at all. That's Shari, that's permitted. But Korsaya, let's say you want to use it in order to make a Korsaya, and again, in order to make this Bima, also that's going to be a problem, because again, now we're taking it from an Aron, which is a higher level of Kedusha, and we're making it into a Bima. That's going to be a problem. That's a lower level of Kedusha. V'yamar Rav, and Rava says, Hai Prisa Divla. Let's say you have, again, this is the curtains of the Aron, rather Prisa Dibala. You have the curtains of the Aron, the Bala, that they wore out. So you want to use them, you want to make them into something else. So L'mi'avde Prisa L'Sifreit, and if you want to make it, let's say you want to use it as a cover for a Sefer Torah, for Sifrei Torah, so then Shari, that's going to be permitted. It was originally used by the Aron, and now it's going to be used for Sifrei Torah. But L'chumashim, but let's say you just want to use it just for one Chumash of the Sefer Torah, one of the 5 Svarim, so then Asr, so that's already going to be prohibited, because that's going to be considered a lower level of Kedusha. First it was serving the Sifrei Torah, now it's just serving a Chumash. As Rashi over here says, L'chumashim yesh Svarim shein asuin kol Chumash levado. Sometimes they would make each Chumash, each Sefer, let's say Bereshis, just on its own, the Kulan Begillion and scrolls, just let's say Bereshis. So again, that would be a lower level. You wouldn't be allowed to do that. And the Gemara continues, V'yamar Rava, and Rava says, Hani zvili de chumshei v'kamteri de sifri. Let's say you have, again, cases for chumashim, or kinds of cases that hold the Sefer Torah. Tashmish Kedusha Ninu, those are serving the purposes of Kedusha, and Ignazin has to be put into Geniza. So the Gemara says, Pshita, it's obvious. It's basically what we just said before. So the Gemara says, no, Ma'udetema, what might you have thought? Hani lav l'chavad avid. In these particular cases we're talking about, they're not made for the honor of the Sefer Torah. The Netzuri B'alma avid, it's really just made to protect the Sefer Torah. So therefore you would think maybe that's not considered Tashmish Kedusha. So Kamash Malani comes to teach us that no, it's considered a Tashmish Kedusha, has to be treated the same way. The Gemara continues, Ha'ube Kenishta di Yehudai Romai. There was a Beis HaKnesses of the Jews in Rome, to have a Pasiach Lahu Idrona, and it was opened up into a particular room, to have a Machas Bei Meis, where there was a dead body. Rashi over here says, Bei Kenishta di Romai, Anshe Yisrael Bome Romi L'Mechuza. So this was Jewish people, they came from Rome, and it's Yashvu Sham, they settled in Mechuza, V'yasulam Beis HaKnesses, and they made a Beis HaKnesses. Idrona, and this Beis HaKnesses was opened up into a cheder, to a room, Shemesimin Bo Meis, where there was a dead body. V'yamunach Bo Meis, Achalon Nikvar. There was actually a dead body there, it was waiting to be buried. So now, V'havabo Kahani L'mei L'tzeluya Hasam. So the Kohanim wanted to come, and they wanted to daven in this shul. So also Amru Leila Rava. So they came and they said this to Rava. Amar Lu, so he said to them, Dalu Tevusa Osvua. So what you should do is take the Teva, take the Aron, and you should place it over there and make it as a separation between the shul and that room. Because the Aron is considered a wooden vessel that's made to rest. It's not made to move around. You have a large wooden vessel that's made to be in one place. That's not mekabel tumah. It's not like a normal klietz that's mekabel tumah. The chotzetz b'fnei tumah, that'll separate from the tumah, and then the kohanim can daven in the shul. So the Gemara says, Amru le Rabbanan l'Rava. So the Rabbanan said to Rava, V'azimnin demetalti le ki monach sefer Torah love. It's not true. Sometimes we take this Aron and we move it around when the Sefer Torah is in there. V'havalei metalti l'moli v'reikam. And then it becomes what's called a klietz that's moved around when it's full and when it's empty. Even when the Sefer Torah is in there, we would move it around. So in such a situation, so he said, Yachi, if that's the case, lo efsha, then you can't really use it, because if it's metalti l'moli v'reikam, that's already considered a regular kli that moves around normally, and therefore it is mekabel tumah. It's not chotzitz b'fnei tumah. And the Gemara continues, Amar Marzutra said, Mitpachos svarim shabalu. Let's say you have the wrapping cloths for Sifrei Torah and they become worn out. Osin osan tachrichin l'meis mitzvah. You can use them as shrouds for a meis mitzvah. V'zuhi genizasan. And this is an appropriate way to do geniza with these wrapping cloths of the Sifrei Torah. And the Gemara continues, V'yamar Rav, and Rav says, Sefer Torah shabalu. Let's say you have a Sefer Torah that becomes worn out. Go and zenoso etzel Talmud Chacham. You can do geniza with it, bury it with a Talmud Chacham. When you're burying a Talmud Chacham, bury that Sefer Torah with a Talmud Chacham. Even if it's just a Talmud Chacham who learns halacha, he's not the greatest level Talmud Chacham, still that's good enough. As Rashi over here says, even if he didn't serve Talmidei Chachamim learning Shas and Gemara, he only learned Mishnah and Brisa, still you can bury the Sefer Torah together with that Talmud Chacham. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov, Rav Acha bar Yaakov says, Uvikli Cheres, when you bury this, you should place the Sefer Torah in Kli Cheres, in an earthenware vessel. Shenamar, like the pasuk says, when it's happened b'Kli Cheres, L'man Yamdu Yomim Rabim. It talks about placing in a Kli Cheres something that can allow it to last for a long time, so that's an appropriate place to place the Sefer Torah. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Papi Mishmei de Rav, Rav Papi says in the name of Rav, Mibei Knishta Levei Rabbanan Shari, to convert an area from a shul into a beis medrash, that's going to be permitted. Mibei Rabbanan, but from a house of the rabbis, meaning a beis medrash, Levei Knishta, to convert a beis medrash to a beis knesses, also that's going to be prohibited. What he's saying presumably is that a beis medrash has more holiness than a beis knesses. For Rav Papa Mishmei de Rav Masni Yivcha. Now Rav Papa, in the name of Rava, he said the exact opposite. He said a beis knesses has more kedusha than a beis medrash. Amar Rav Acha says, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video, on Daf Chav Zayin Amud Aleph.